So welcome everyone to the VEF Virtual Series. For those who are joining for the first time, so the VEF Virtual Series, guided by the theme Accelerating Energy Transition, is a sequence of online consultation that explore the pathways that stimulate demand and promote economic recovery in 3 end-use sectors. This is the 6th session of our product tracks covering digitalization and innovation. Before we begin, I would like to quickly draw your attention to our Let's Talk About Connected Devices, both at the bottom left of your screen. It will open after the closing session, so at 3:30, so from 3:30 to 3:45. There, you will have the opportunity to interact directly with an expert right on stage. So stay until the end to join Mrs. Nitya Menon from Okra Solar. Now, to break the ice, we would like to start with a quick interactive trivia. On the right side, there's a tab called Slido. So you will see chat, polls, and Slido. There, you will see a question and 3 possible answers. Please make sure to send your response within the next hour, and we will regroup after the breakout room discussion to take a look at the result. The question is, how much could digitalization reduce the energy demand growth by 2040? Again, just click on the Slido tab to the right of your screen and tap your answer. After the breakout rooms discussion, we will give you the results of the session. So for now, I will then just begin today's session, and I would like to invite Mrs. Rana Gonem. She is the Chief of the Energy System and Infrastructure Division here at UNIDO. Rana, the floor is yours.
Hi, Otalia. Thank you for the introduction and welcome everyone to this session of the Vienna Energy Forum Virtual Series, the Products Track. So as Otalia said, we've been convening this discussion already since October, and today's theme is digitalization and energy efficiency in products. We had already seen over the past few years quite a lot of digital applications moving into systems for controlling efficiency within buildings, helping appliances also to connect through artificial intelligence and Internet of Things to improve efficiency also of appliances and home systems. We've seen it also in manufacturing, and so digitalization has really become quite an effective tool to help promote more energy efficiency. With the pandemic, I believe we even see that coming more and more. It is quite an important element of the resilience of any business and any individual. We have been able to continue working on our systems thanks to digitalization. So in the session today, we have invited the colleague Gabriela Pratas-Diaz. You see her already in the window, to share with us also some of their insights from the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency on what the linkage between digitalization and energy efficiency. Are we really contributing to improving energy efficiency? Are we shifting the problem somewhere else in terms of the digital infrastructure? These are all insights that you will learn about also today from Gabriela's presentation. After that, we have gathered a number of key experts, which as usual will convene in the breakout rooms to explore the topic along 3 perspectives. The global perspective, where we are really looking at the state of play. Where are we at the moment with regards to this nexus of digital technologies and products? What are the main challenges and opportunities that we need to resolve to actually bring the nexus further? In the country voices, we have a discussion that brings together also representatives from a number of countries, Ghana, Nigeria, and others, where they will really tackle the topic of challenges at the ground root level that they are facing, and opportunities also that they see for the digitalization. And then in the last group, Enablers for Progress, we have a number of the development partners that are working in the topic and can also give us good examples of some of the development-oriented support to promote this nexus. After the scene setting presentation, you'll be moving into the breakout rooms, and then we will reconvene here in the plenary to hear the summaries from the moderators for each breakout session. So with that, I would like to invite Gabriela. Thank you so much, Gabriela, for accepting our invitation, and please go ahead and start with your presentation.
Thanks a lot, Rana, and thanks a lot, Otalia, for organizing this session on such a relevant topic to which I hope I can contribute, providing some avenues for reflection, also then in the parallel sessions, and kickstart the discussion. That's the main objective for today. So I have a few slides on that will accompany my presentation, and I will be asking Otalia to move them forward as we go. Just before I start, a quick note on the Copenhagen on Energy Efficiency is hosted in Copenhagen, in Denmark, but we actually work around the world in developing countries and emerging economies. So the Copenhagen Center is part of a UNEP-DTU partnership, where we are a collaborating center to United Nations Environment Program, and we are hosted as well by the Technical University of Denmark. We are also collaborating in UNIDO in several overarching partnerships and collaborations around the energy efficiency topic. So I think we can now start with the presentation. Can you please move to the next slide, Otalia? So we are on the road towards sustainable digital transformation. I think this is widely accepted, and because of the event of COVID-19 has put digital technologies in the center of society. We are kind of being forced to adopt and adapt to the different solutions, and it has really made us accelerate the uptake of the digital technologies and even to innovate in this during this last year. We change a lot our behavior towards goods and services, and you are very well, I'm sure, aware of the different possibilities now around virtual shopping, around meetings and gatherings like the one today. Some things that we normally used to do in presential mode, now we are moving them online and using all these digital platforms, which I think we are, a lot of us, very much familiar with at the moment. And even regarding medical assistance, many of the services have come online as well. So with all this, we were forced to rethink the business models, and we were forced to introduce in our daily lives a lot of new technologies that we hardly knew, and these are some references that we have been hearing talking about a lot over the last months, especially over the last month. And these are the 5G, Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, adoption of blockchain, additive manufacturing, which is mostly known as 3D printing, big data and big data management, all things related with automation, cloud computing, etc., you name it. So there are a lot of new words and concepts that we are integrating in our daily lives. Now the question is, with all this, we haven't actually been able to move forward the energy efficiency in order for it to progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals objectives and the Paris Agreement, knowing that energy efficiency has actually a strong potential to improve the overall climate situation, namely it has the potential to even decrease about 40% the emissions related to the energy use. So it's really something that we need to consider, how to bring together these two tools, both digital technologies and innovation, and how can it mutually help energy efficiency advance and progress on this front. Can you please change slide? And here are some of just a few examples on what we can be considering. Where are the interactions and the interfaces between energy efficiency and digitalization, and how can we better take profit and align the two these two systems or two concepts so that they can mutually benefit each other and also contribute to a climate improvement. So a few examples that probably the attendees of this event will be familiar with around building management systems, for example, around all those systems around smart thermostats and smart climatization inside buildings, including heating and cooling and ventilation, around lighting and switching on and off and dimming different lighting systems inside buildings, and then we can go on and on further to water and waste, etc. And then if we move to the industry sector, then we have all the new opportunities around automation and big data and Internet of Things, etc. So all systems that would hopefully contribute to reduce energy demand in the different industrial processes and product manufacturing. If we go inside, again, our homes, we can take profit, for example, of smart and efficient appliances. If we need to move into a super efficient settings inside our homes, there are a lot of opportunities that are already coming up with smart appliances, something that you can control and manage through your mobile phone and apps, applications that you can interact directly with your machines, washing machines, etc. In the smart city concepts, municipalities and cities are looking into integrated functionalities. So using the physical infrastructure, for example, efficient street lighting to introduce sensors that could actually contribute to monitor several aspects of city life, like, for example, parking spaces, crowds, as well as monitoring air quality around the city. So this is another example of good integration of digitalization and energy efficiency technologies. And then again, moving into electrification of energy uses. So if knowing that we are moving towards a more renewable energy, or hopefully fully renewable energy systems, we can definitely use this transition in order to improve the energy efficiency and in the interconnection between the mobility space and the housing space and heating and cooling. So everything will get connected. And lastly, around the transport sector, I mean, a lot seems to be upcoming around last mile logistics, but we can expand also to autonomous vehicles, which are the tendencies that actually they are like computers on wheels, and all the related services around systems, organizations, around booking and pricing and mobility as a service. So a lot of new avenues that we could explore around this topic in the connection between the sectoral upgrades of energy efficiency and the introduction of digitalization. Next slide, please. And if we can go even further in this topic, we could even move into more frontier technologies and like blockchain, for example, where we could have all these connected devices and interfaces relating to Internet of Things and real-time management of the energy flows in the whole city or neighborhood or whatever the space we can consider. So we could have real-time interactions and transparency flows of energy between homes or even between the homes and the utility. So we have more and more dynamic marketplace that we can potentially be moving into. Now, next slide, please. So these are the opportunities that digitalization can help us to enhance energy efficiency, basically on predicting supply and demand, measure in real time what are the energy needs and how are we going to supply them, provide possibilities on remote monitoring, improving the analysis and decision making, increasing in transparency of the whole system, hopefully. Some drawbacks, and because behind all this digitalization, there's a huge infrastructure that needs to support this transition or digital transition. And if we look into, for example, data centers, which can be the backbone of all this transition, we have systems that can be small, that would be a consumption unit around 50 kilowatts up to hyperscalers that could have a power demand over 50 megawatts. And these could be and are now starting to be related to one of the big industrial users around the world. Before the COVID crisis, the aggregation of all the data centers in the world was expected to be responsible for energy demand around 1 to 1.5% worldwide, with an energy demand increase between around 6% between 2010 and 2018, with computing instances growing about 550% also in the same period. And this is just before the COVID-19 crisis. So we wonder what will be the recent numbers for this type of energy uses and the growth of energy demand associated with digitalization. So there's still some discussion around these numbers, but these are the ones that we trust are the most accurate from the literature that we have been looking into in our daily work. Next slide, please. So which are why are these data centers so energy demanding? Because they need to consume energy in several locations, from the chips, which are the smallest part of the computing servers, up to the routers, the direct power and backup and storage, but probably the biggest one is around cooling and ventilation. So these are the biggest energy demands in data centers, be them small data centers or large data centers. So small data rooms up to hyperscalers, like the big tech companies that we know from around the world, like the Facebook, Google, etc. And then, of course, the control and security systems. So these are the grouping of different energy demands that are associated with data centers. Next slide, please. A few companies are already looking into this and testing some possibilities for improvement. And we are seeing from China some opportunities around innovative cooling systems, like liquid cooling solutions that actually can go up as small as the ship size of cooling, up to the use of green hydrogen and fuel cells in server farms, up to underwater data centers that Microsoft is actually testing under the sea. And finally, an example of renewable energy heat recovery in the Nordics that is being tested in Denmark and in Sweden. So using the exhaust heat from data centers and insert them into district heating systems in local communities. So these are some of the exploratory ideas that are being tested. So, but we suppose many others should come up. There are some also some regulatory as well needs for regulation of the whole of this industry. Something we probably need to look into with more detail. Can you please move slide? So, so what are the challenges at the moment that we can identify around innovation and digitalization, so around the digital economy? So first thing is around the rebound effects. We have to be sure that the advantages actually outpace the disadvantages. So we are conscious that there are direct and indirect rebound effects of the use of these solutions. So they can actually mean an increase in energy demand and consequently in emissions. So there are environmental impacts associated with this, namely the ones I mentioned, and as well as around the electronic waste and resource efficiency, something that also should be looked into in the perspective of life cycle assessment. And finally, around governance. So all the issues around regulation and standards up to cybersecurity and data protection and the digital divide, possibly something that is very, very relevant, not only in developed countries, but also in developing countries. So how can communities and people have easy access to digital solutions, and how can they actually benefit and take profit of using them? And around, of course, then economic disruptions that could be happening around the intersection of innovation and digitalization. Next slide, please. So, kind of conclusion, how are we placing digital and energy efficiency in the heart of our policies and our targets? Namely, if we are looking into nationally determined contributions, SDGs, and recovery packages, something which is most of the countries are looking into at the moment and discussing internally. So we have to be conscious that there is a lot of benefit to integrating energy efficiency in these recovery packages, not only because energy efficiency have quick gains, have a strong job creation associated with it. So, and then delivering on economic development, and could benefit a lot from local supply chains. If we can integrate all these together, so the digital technologies and solutions, we could actually boost digital infrastructure investment. So something to be looking into. Need to develop regulatory frameworks, standards, policy, and planning. Something we need to be aware of, that the technology nowadays is evolving much faster than regulation. So something to be looking into. Better upskilling and reskilling of professionals, something that we'll be discussing in the parallel sessions later on. Support to SMEs on digital transformation and in all sectors. Really push forward for testing and innovation and fund research and development, and promote the global collaboration and digital toolkits for developing countries and emerging economies. So something that we could, as a community, support this development. And of course, information, communication, and behavior change. thing that we are doing here today, and hopefully will bring to different countries as of today as well. And finally, next slide, please. There are some literature that we have available at the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency that it is free to download and have a look. So please feel free to look into our website and enjoy the reading on this concrete topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gabriela, for those useful insights and great inputs to the discussion today. I would like now to invite you all to go to the left side where you see the series and to enter into the group, whichever group that you would like to join to the discussions in. Group 1, we actually have the session being moderated by a representative of and then we have speakers from ICF, C2E2, IACRI, and the CTCN. In Group 2, the session, so that's the country voices, the session is moderated by the colleague Raymond Tavares from UNIDO, and then we have representatives from Ghana, Senegal, Pakistan, and also a startup that is doing work in Cambodia, Philippines, Indonesia, and Nigeria. And finally, the last group, Enablers for Progress, is being moderated by Pasi Ogola and from the SDG 7 Youth Constituency, and is joined by representatives from GCF, SIDA, the African Development Bank, and also KSEP. So enjoy the discussion, and I see you here again at 3:15 for the wrap-up of the moderators. Thank you.
So first of all, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are all dialing in from. I'm Anurag and I'm based in India. I work at SeedStars, lead the partnerships there, and I look forward to interacting with all the panelists who are joining today for this session and to all of you. So first of all, a big round of welcome to all of you present here. This session is part of the product stack, as you know, of the virtual series that is run by Vienna Energy Forum. And the theme is pretty much about digitalization and innovation, and how do we leverage that, to support economic recovery. So first of all, before I, get into the panel discussion, just would like to give a warm welcome to all the panelists who are joined this session. So you've already heard Gabriela. So Gabriela is one of our key panelists for this session. She is the head of Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, part of UNEP and DTU partnership. And Gabriela, would you like to introduce yourself a little briefly, just like 10 seconds?
Hi, everyone. I think I already explained who we are. So we're based in Copenhagen and looking into energy efficiency topics in emerging economies and developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Then we have John Klinger. He's the Senior Managing Consultant and Energy and Sustainability at ICF, and he's dialing in from USA. So thanks, John. Would you like to give an introduction about yourself?
Sure, John Klinger. I spend most of my time supporting the US EPA on our Energy Star program, really large voluntary energy labeling program. I manage the team that develops technical criteria for all 75 product areas.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And then we have another speaker, Mr. Woo Jun Lee. He is the Senior Innovation Specialist at Climate Technology Center and Network Copenhagen. Thank you for joining, Woo Jun Lee. Would you like to do a quick introduction from your end about your role?
Sure. How are you, everyone? Lee, I'm originally a government official in South Korea, and now I have an opportunity to be working at CTCN as an innovation specialist for 3 years. It's kind of a second program, so I'm very great honor to join here with a great specialist in energy efficient field, with you. So it's a happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your introductions, everyone. And it's an honor to have such an esteemed panel, experts in your field in the energy efficiency. We are waiting for one more panelist, Mr. Michael Kiza. He'll be joining shortly. And once he joins, we'll do a brief intro of him too. But he's the program management expert at East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Efficiency in Uganda. So we look forward to hear his perspective. So this panel, if you can see such a diverse panel, joining from around the world, you can notice this panel is all about bringing the global perspectives together, and global perspectives on energy efficiency and the kind of digitalization innovation practices they have seen in their roles in different organizations or in different countries, and bringing them here, going through the barriers and challenges to opportunities they see, and then the best practices and recommendations the panelists have to make. Just some ground, key guide rules, not rules really, just some tips to all the panelists. If you are not speaking, can you please mute yourself so that that'll be easier. And when it's your turn, please unmute yourself. That's it, I think. So with that, let's begin. I think this session, the guiding theme around of this session is all about how innovation and digitalization in the energy efficiency field can really support economic recovery and the sustainable employment around the world. So what we will see in this session is, exploring the potential for, as I said, digitalization to increase energy efficiency. And by the end of the session, how we can draw out some recommendations that can support the economic recovery, and then we'll present it to the panel. I think it's perfect timing. We have Mr. Michael Kiza also joining from Uganda. Welcome, Michael. Can you hear us?
Thank you so much. Apologies for, I don't know what happened. I listened to Gabriela's nice speech all up to the end and my system crashed. I don't know.
It happens, I think. We are living in a pretty virtual world.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining. And we were just introducing all the panelists and the objective of the session. I would like to give a floor to you for 10 seconds to quickly introduce yourself, Michael, as you're joining from IACRI in Uganda. So
yeah,
please introduce yourself.
I'm a program management expert at the East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Efficiency, IACRI. We normally call it IACRI. So we promote renewable energy and energy efficiency, as the name suggests, in the all of East African region, and we collaborate with the many partners. I'm happy to be with Gabriela. We are actually discussing another training course, Yellow Gabriela, starting tomorrow on energy efficiency for municipalities, and a lot of other things that we are doing together, and many other partners. Of course, our core partner being UNIDO. We exist because of UNIDO initiative to establish these centers, a global network of sustainable energy centers, which IACRI is part of it. So many CREs that are there around the world. So yes, prior to joining IACRI, I was with the International Atomic Energy Agency, different perspective, but all these areas where digitalization is very important. So I'm happy to talk about this subject with this vast experience of experts around the table.
Great. No, this is great, Michael. Thanks so much. I think let's begin. The first question I think I have for you is, let's start with you, and then I think I would love to hear the thoughts from other panelists too. But what are the necessary interventions required to scale up digitalization and innovation to improve energy efficiency? I think we can start with you, Michael. Would love to hear your thoughts about your work in Uganda. And then we can, after Michael, I think it'll be good to hear from John, from his experience, followed by Wujin Lee, and then Gabriela. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, digitalization as a concept is relatively new, but I mean, the digital transformation is not something actually so new. From the time we were born, people were going digital, and there are a lot of, as Gabriela already highlighted, a lot of potentials that we see in both energy sectors and other sectors of the economy. So when it comes to energy efficiency, as Gabriela highlighted, so much potentials that we can tap from. Simple technologies such as motion sensors and photo sensors have been in use for quite some time, but not everybody is, appreciating the contribution of this simple digital technology. Sometimes, like when I sit here, I have my neighbor who is off for some reason, not available, but decided to leave the lights on because no one is there to switch on light in the evening. But if you have a photo sensor or a motion sensor, you don't need to do that. So these simple technologies are there, has been around for quite a while, but of course we are now advancing into, as Gabriela highlighted, the 5G Internet of Things and smart, smart grids, smart homes, smart cities. All these are things that are coming. Now, wide-scale adoption of these, new technologies, advancement in digitalization requires the right enabling environment. There should be, digitalization should be an integral part of the energy policy of every country. They should include the aspect of digitalization. When they're revising their policies, they should have this included. The key challenge for policymakers, of course, is to steer it in the way that it maximizes the benefits and minimizes the impacts, as Gabriela mentioned, the rebound effect. Is there any rebound effect that we can address? So the policies should look at that, those aspects. Now, what are the key interventions that that the policy should include and that should be implemented? One is awareness. I mean, there is general lack of awareness or limited awareness about digitalization. I mean, the word digitalization or digital transformation is not very common in many people's vocabularies, but it has to, continue to advocate for that. Capacity building, of course, it's important that we do the digital transformation. We need to have the right technical expertise. So where is the training capabilities? Where are the people who can really steer up this from the technical aspects? Of course, the policymakers will rely on the technical. You can put the policy if you don't have the capacity to implement in terms of the technical know-how, then you're doomed to fail. So we need capacities in the design, making, installation, maintenance of these technologies in the developing countries. In fact, there should be deliberate effort to build local capacities, not to rely on imported expertise. Promotion of research and innovation, yes, very important. I mean, these technologies should not be, in the hands of only a few countries. I mean, because if they develop these digital solutions, I mean, they should be site-specific, taking into consideration of the climatic conditions of the places. A digital solution in the northern hemisphere, far in the Arctic, would not be a good solution. Maybe in our climates in the tropics. So that means everyone should take seriously the research and innovation to come up with appropriate solutions. Gabriela mentioned the issues of cybersecurity, data protections, and so this requires the regulation, appropriate regulations. This is another area of interventions that governments need to. So as the digital transformation builds up momentum, we need to come up with appropriate regulations to address the challenges that may come as a result of the cybersecurity data protection issues. Of course, this is very serious in Europe, in Africa, a little bit not so much serious, but I mean, it's also coming up. So we need, So yes, then, So then financial course, we need the appropriate financing mechanism put in place to address the high cost of, because when we're talking about these big data centers, we're talking about the infrastructure needed, we're going to the 5G, where do we get all this money? We need an appropriate financing mechanism to address this. Then, of course, we don't want to forget strengthening collaboration and partnership for research and innovation, both within the countries, the academia, the policymakers, the industry, and also with other countries. So these are some key interventions that I think would help us not to leave anyone behind when it comes to the digital transformation. Thank you.
We had a focus on really democratizing the access and not leaving anyone behind. Thanks, Michael, I think, for great inputs. John, I would love to hear your thoughts on the same.
Sure, and I'm going to speak from the Energy Star / US perspective because we have a lot of technology, we have a lot of resources. There's still a few challenges we have no matter what resources you have available. So starting with that, probably one of the largest ones is for smarter products like smart thermostats, for smart home energy management systems. A lot of those smarter products, we need to create the energy savings justification to support utility rebate programs, particularly ones that apply to certain service territories or different geographies. So, whether that's pilot programs, case studies, basically providing the evidence of savings so that rebates can exist and help consumers actually purchase the products that may come at a bit of a cost premium. Another really big one is defining and standardizing interaction between connected products and demand response programs. We've put a lot of work into this as a program, focusing primarily on large loads like HVAC, water heating, electric vehicle charging, to really push manufacturers to allow products to communicate in a uniform way so utilities can rely on those loads in larger groups and actually benefit from them, as well as to make use of time of use rates as available. And finally, on that point, ensuring local codes and standards actually allow, encourage, and even require these smarter products. More on the building side a little bit, and making sure that proper metering and sensor equipment is installed, whether it's a commercial building, a data center. Gabriella brought up data centers before. Our program about a decade ago, we actually required for Energy Star server storage equipment, network equipment, that it had sensors within that were available in free third-party reporting format to report area inlet temperature, power, utilization, and all those data points have become the base of a lot of data center infrastructure management solutions now. So all that data can be pulled from anywhere in any rack and help data center operators better manage their data centers. And that's been an awesome, development. And finally, on data centers, more the backbone, 35% of all the data centers in the world are in the US, and it's over 3% of our electricity use. So it's really important for the US that we hit them hard. And we've had a lot of improvement over the past decade on the cooling side of things. You hear about PUE a lot. Everyone's lowering their PUE numbers, and that's been great. It's terrific. But a lot of people have ignored the IT equipment side of things because PUE doesn't account for that. And there's a lot of opportunities still on the IT equipment side, whether it's taking advantage of better power management features that manufacturers have introduced over the last decade, whether it's proper installation of the equipment, whether it's blanking panels, better cabling to allow for better airflow, whether it's just purchasing Energy Star equipment in a geography that may have it, because things like power management are always baked in at that point. But shifting the focus back to the IT equipment side is something, it's a relatively low-hanging fruit that a lot of organizations are missing right now. So, yeah.
John, thank you for sharing more perspective from the developed part of the world, and especially, I think, US. Thank you. I think would love to hear thoughts from Fujin Lee, if you're still here.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep. I, as an innovation specialist working Paris Agreement implementing body of a technology mechanism on the UNEP CCC, the CTCN, I would like to mention the necessary interventions for digitalization and innovation. The first, digital literacy and convergence capability, and also the third is collaboration capabilities. So we are all realize digital technologies are key enablers of smartness, sustainability, and environmental resilience. But nowadays, with increasing volume of data, in advanced analytics and greater connectivity between humans, devices, and machines, especially the digitalization of climate sector, including efficiency, is more meaningful because it provides the basis for understanding and assessing climate variability. So accordingly, we predict extreme climate events, for example, through early warning system, designing mitigation and adaptation strategies for optimization of energy efficiency in building, transportation, logistics, and cities, etc. So first, I would like to mention the digital literacy. The many digital technologies have been evolving themselves into industrial revolutions from first to now the fourth, based on the development of hardware and software technologies. From the perspective of digital technology itself, it is very important to utilize digital knowledges, skills, technologies, and techniques, and digital products well within the whole digital environment ecosystem by reading and writing a good quality of open data, stable infrastructure for data processing, and good algorithms and analytics and better impact. And the second is converging capability, better digitalizations, especially for tackling the climate change issue. It is indispensable that conventional technologies, which are necessary for hardware industries such as electric, building, transport, agriculture, and so on, should be transformed to a large, improved energy efficient industries by converging with technologies. So converging capabilities can be done by software technologies as known as ABC. A stands for the AI, for fast and more accurate data analysis. B as big data such as climate, energy, data accumulated from various IoT sensors, and C as cloud computing for online data storages. And finally, I would like to say collaborating capability. It is the close working partner between the stakeholders in digitalization and innovation. For example, between the public and private business sectors, along with engagement of academia, NGO stakeholders. Generally, as you know, the climate technologies are regarded as expensive, long time taking technology for R&D, so they are not attractive to the market basic or fundamental sciences, but proactive collaboration among academic, private sector, and government can facilitate the commercialization of the technology in new digitalized service market by seamless innovative technology scale up, building the new business model, and supporting the economic and legislative incentives for research and development.
Thank you for, I think, covering some other points which I think were not covered really in the past. I really enjoyed the part of the collaboration that you highlighted amongst various stakeholders. That's awesome. I think with that, let's hear thoughts from Gabriela. I know she's already presented and covered some of these topics in her kind of presentation earlier, but would love to hear some of the other things that others, speakers have missed out or haven't covered, and apart from even like the challenges around cost and technical abilities, any other key barriers around digitalization that you have seen in your experience that you would like to touch base?
Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, the previous speakers mentioned most of the critical points around this discussion. I would just like to perhaps highlight the need for, again, probably stress the need for an appropriate regulatory framework and policy and governance structure that would accompany or be in line with the investment in critical digital infrastructure, so that we need it to progress. And that comes, as I think was already mentioned, connected also with finance. And as a professional on the energy efficiency space, I have now great faith on the combination and the alignment that it seems to be coming up between the disclosure of investments from financial institutions on greening their portfolios. This alignment, together with the alignment on the opportunities that are coming up with digital technologies. So if we combine the two, I think we really have an opportunity to move the energy efficiency agenda forward. I think, and hopefully, I really hope that I'm right, that we can really see a tipping point and a game changer with the combination of these two. But of course, I mean, we shouldn't disregard the digitalization literacy that needs to accompany the creation also of the appropriate frameworks so that people have the opportunity to interact, to exchange experiences, so that they can move forward. And finally, probably more on the social side, taking care of also the digital divide. So making sure that everybody has actually access to these services, to these technologies, so that no one is lagging behind. And finally, we also need to be clear and that this digitalization also involves jobs destruction in some perhaps older professions. I'm thinking some time ago, I was involved in discussions with a distribution systems operator, and they were saying before we had people like going to the different energy consumers and taking note or reading the meters, how much they were consuming every month. And now we don't need that anymore. So we have all these smart meters that are registering online at a second detail all the energy demand. So what are we going to do with these people that used to have this type of jobs? And actually, they were considering like recycling this type of people on data management and teach them how to deal with big amounts of data and to manage the data around this topic. So this is just an example. Probably, I mean, of course, I agree with everything that my fellow panelists have mentioned, but just yeah, try to find a spot perhaps less touched. But this is something that we see as well. Thank you.
So, thank you. Actually, you touched on something very crucial. I think you touched on the reskilling part. You know, you touched on the reskilling. So I think the next question for you, Gabriela, just as a follow-up, and then I'll come back to other panelists again. What are the type of jobs and what kind of reskilling initiatives that you see that can be created through the promotion of innovation and digitalization for energy efficiency? And especially, I think if you can also share insights on the developing world or the emerging markets and frontier markets need different sort of skilling initiatives than the developed ones. So if you can, and maybe John or anyone else can jump in and share some of these ideas, both for developed and developing worlds, to not leaving anyone behind. What are the key type of jobs that can be created through the promotion of these innovation and digitalization for energy efficiency? Then what are the key digitalization opportunities that developed countries could or should target based on their technical ability and cost? So would love to hear your thoughts, Gabriela, first, and then we'll follow up to other panelists.
Yeah, thanks, Anurag. I mean, we actually have been looking into skills needs in a few countries, and we plan to continue doing this work. I mean, the angle is very much on the energy efficiency side, but I think we can possibly take some elaborations from the conclusions of this work. So basically, we were looking into the training and the curricula around energy efficiency in buildings. We used the case of Argentina, also together with the national government there. See what would be the skills and needs in the topic of energy efficiency in buildings. And the ones that came up with more connection to the digitalization part of it is everything around measurement and energy management. So very much around data, collecting data, and knowing what to do with it, and creating the necessary schedules, and be sure that they are able to identify what is the critical data that needs to be taken on. And then, of course, connected to that, everything around energy audits, simulation tools, being able to use programming and simulation programs to understand what are the energy needs of different buildings, and where are the opportunities for improvement. We did a similar exercise in Sri Lanka, and there we were looking into the transport sector, and there we were looking into not only transport skills on the efficiency, the energy efficiency angle, but also on trip energy efficiency skills and vehicle energy efficiency skills. So the three, we have transport, we have trip, and we have vehicles. In a logic of trying to avoid commuting needs or transportation needs, and also shifting and improving the energy efficiency in this space. And the gaps seem to come very much on the systems efficiency and the trip efficiency. So again, I think we are facing a need for skills in data management, data collection, and this type of simulation tools again. So very much on the same side of the needs. So this is just a concrete experience that we had in a few countries that we were looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. I think those are very concrete examples from Sri Lanka and your experience in Argentina. Thank you for highlighting. Vujinli, would you like to also share some of your experiences and examples around the jobs that can be created?
So based on the lesson learned from the previous technical cases, the digital technologies are already widely used in all energy end-use sectors. So more and more residential and commercial buildings are equipped with smart appliances and intelligent management systems. So accordingly, as more and more new business and startups related to the energy efficiency increases, new also created, such as special energy efficiency engineers, consultants, or data analysts for energy efficiency. For example, one startup is developing digital twins of buildings in order to optimize building energy efficiency, heatings, lightings, and quality controls. Also, smart grid companies requires many blockchain technology specialists who can deal with energy trade under secure information environment. And there are new innovative jobs opportunities in digitalization related hardware systems. For example, smart Somerset storage systems include smart batteries manufacturing companies. So as one of the TCN's innovative network member, EcoWorks is working on real housing restoration to make buildings net zero greenhouse gases emissions. So they also ask many data scientists who will be responsible for climate and energy data modeling and analysis for energy efficiency optimization. So I think the good opportunity for digitalization for developing countries with low cost and technical ability. Actually, there is not much opportunity for that, since a well-established digital infrastructure, mostly internet and digital devices, are prerequisite. But although we can imagine, for example, remote software management for developing countries maintain good energy efficiency using digital twin technologies in order to overcome a large gap of engineering performance between technology providers and users. So as you know, we daily use various smartphone and software applications and data, which are actually stored and operated in remote cloud computing data center or servers. Similarly, all the big data from low cost and low technical sensors within developing countries can be remotely analyzed online digital twins established in cloud computing at digitalized countries. I think this idea can be extended to another good digitalization opportunity for developing countries, which developing countries can use the developing countries as a scale-up or demonstration testbed site for newly developed digital technologies before its commercialization. So this collaboration with local regulation flexible or regulation-free developing countries can be a good incentive for countries to produce and gather reproducible field data, which are very crucial for new business start and market creation at local and worldwide.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great insights. I think just before I move to the kind of next question, would love to hear Michael or John, if you have any thoughts around, among the questions that I have asked so far that you would like to touch base on, whether it's around the key barriers that have all, that has been pretty much covered by all the panelists, but anything that has been missed out that you would like to still touch base. John, I think you're muted if you're speaking.
Are you interested in additional key barriers or to touch base?
Yeah, additional key barriers is anything you want to cover that has not been covered yet, because you bring a very interesting perspective from US.
So here are a few that maybe are not technology specific. Coming to mind, accounting for the electrical load of connected functionality across the products themselves, and striving for the goal that the additional power that these products use to become connected is overshadowed by the energy savings at the grid level. So, you don't want to add a bunch of energy and then you're not saving as much as you're adding. So, just looking at that balance. Cybersecurity and interoperability came up before. It's really important with smart home products and IoT products to develop consumer trust. Not only that the product won't be hacked, but that their data is safe, that their data isn't being shared with others, that it isn't being manipulated or sold. And I know we've been working a lot with IoT cyber standard development with NIST, CTA, ETSI, UL. There's many different efforts underway to try to standardize, minimum levels of cybersecurity for IoT. I think that's very important for consumer trust. A lack of standardized communication between distributed energy resources like PV and grid operators. A lot of PV is installed, but then how it interacts with the grid can be complicated and a mess, frankly. So, we really need more standardization there. And finally, more organizational, and this is slowly improving in the US, but I believe it's a problem everywhere, is the lack of communication organizationally between, say, an IT manager and a facilities group. And more broadly, just those who are managing the capital expenditures versus those who are managing the operational expenditures, and that they're not on the same page. So different decisions will be made up front and then result in higher operating costs down the road. This is particularly true in data centers, the backbone of all this, where it's really risk averse and it's hard to transform that environment. So, trying to break those barriers and encourage organizations to communicate towards larger goals, really even at the C-suite level, so that energy efficiency becomes part of the company's corporate sustainability goals and not just an afterthought. So.
Thank you, John. I think
maybe I can add from the developing country scenario. I mean, we have mentioned all those things like limited capacity, cost, and what. But and one thing that is maybe peculiar to developing countries like Uganda is grid instability. you have this serious trouble in that you have unstable voltages. When you're talking about digital technologies, they require more stability in the voltage level. So here we have unstable voltage and then frequent power cuts, which happens because the system, the grid is very fragile, very old, and always breakdowns. So this discourages people from adapting these highly sensitive technologies, which I mean, in the face of instability in the grid, can break down easily, and these are very costly stuff. So it's very discouraging to investors.
I think a lot of countries, if I may, are struggling with grid issues. I mean, even looking at the US, Texas recently, California with continuous problems. The grid, we were speaking about jobs before, and I think there's going to be a ton of jobs to improve grids across the world to better support these energy efficiency technologies, better storage, and other technologies like that.
I think that was my next question about actually Texas. How can the situations like Texas can be, you know,
I mean, not to get too much of the details, but the Texas grid is separate from the rest of the country, and that was detrimental to them.
No, thanks, John. I think before I jump onto the final question from my side, I wanted to ask audience, if you have any questions for the panelists, please drop them in the comments, and I would love to cover if we have time in the end. It seems we have another 10 minutes discussion. So no, not actually 10 minutes, 6 minutes. So I think if you have any questions, please drop in the comments. But meanwhile, I think a final question from my side to all the panelists, and it's about, you know, seeking recommendations. So how your organizations, you know, and your work with the national governments around the world, whether your own country governments or as an institution you worked with other national governments, use digitalization to support energy efficiency. Some of you have already kind of answered that and shared example. So in this, I would love to focus more on share your topmost recommendation that you have seen has been proven successful at stimulating the uptake of digitalization, promoting innovation, and creating jobs. And I would love to share that recommendation, you know, with everyone as part of the summary. So yeah, let's start. Anyone who wants to jump in first.
I'll take a quick stab at it. Really quickly, a lot of what I've mentioned before is focused around a voluntary program, and whether it's voluntary, whether it's MEPS, you know, mandatory requirements, finding ways to not only create the requirements, but then incentivize them and market them. A little money in marketing towards customers can go a long way. So I'm not saying huge marketing budgets, but educating consumers on what the benefits are, how it can improve their lives, both from an energy perspective and also highlighting the non-energy benefits of these products and how it can make their life easier. That can hook a lot of people that otherwise might not be interested. So I think that's a key, really, for anything energy efficiency related, in my opinion. The focus should be on, you know, savings at their wallet level, how it makes their life easier. If it's not an improvement that improves their life, the odds of them adopting it are very low. So really focusing on how it's going to make their life better, and those energy savings will come along with it. I think that's an effective way that we've seen a lot of people who may not otherwise adopt these technologies, give them a try.
John. Michael, do you want to go next?
We are embracing digitalization as a center, although we have not, I could say we have not done that much, but it's a concept that we now include in a lot of our conversation. If you look at our business plan, digitalization is mentioned specifically as one of the interventions, building capacity for and promoting digitalization in the energy sector is mentioned as one of the key areas of interventions that we look for in the next 5 years. So it's a very important thing. We believe that East Africa should not be left behind in the digital transformation.
Thanks, Michael. Gabriela, next.
Yeah, I just would like to follow on with Mike, and actually we are starting tomorrow a training course targeting municipalities. We are doing it together with them and for East Africa. So I really think that, I mean, number one is regulatory frameworks, but I would say number two would be creating the necessary convening spaces that people either formally or non-formally receive capacity, are able to capacitate and receive training in order to deploy these skills. So I think there is a huge need of capacity, and both on energy efficiency and also in connected digitalization. So hopefully this is two of the things that we need to put our attention in the upcoming future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo Jin Lee?
Yes, since 2013, the CTCN has been working on climate technology development and transfer with more than 600 external network members, specialists, and over 200 governments from both developed and developing countries. Not just financial support or simple technology transfer, but we play an important role as a matchmaker who always analyze the characteristics of both parties before actual matchmaking activity. One party is technology providers, especially from developed countries, and also the other party is technology users at developing countries who wants to solve their climate issues using the technology. So in order to be an effective matchmaker, we are now recently strengthening our innovation in our services by using digitalizations as first on innovative technology solution when we operate our mandate of technology assistant, and the second, essential endogenous capability for developing countries during our ongoing incubation program like SME clinics for developing countries. So we have many examples in Kenya or Ghana's like SME clinic programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing great insights and your thoughts and experiences about your work on energy efficiency and digitalization and innovation in this field. I think we have to now jump on the main plenary session where we'll be joined by everyone there. So just want to take this moment to appreciate your time and sharing all the insights with everyone. Thank you so much. I think we didn't receive any questions from everyone anywhere. So let's go to the plenary and we'll see you there, everyone.
This is my pleasure. I'm Raymond Tavares. I am UNIDO staff member. I've been working at UNIDO for many years, but my interest on digitalization and innovation is maybe 25, 30 years ago back, you know, and so I'm a PhD on innovation and industrial development. And digitalization became nowadays, fortunately, the daily bread of everybody. And today we are talking about digitalization even in the energy sector. And as we heard from the presenter, Gabriela Prata Diaz, nowadays, even in the energy sector is becoming a need. Normally, I said to the people, digitalization stands for efficiency first, to make the life of the people much more comfortable. Also, those who are working easier, to create more accuracy, security, safety, to think about the sustainability and replicability of things. Obviously, it's about integrating all the different facets of our life. And obviously, energy is the basics. is at the basic of our life, is like the engine. So this is correct. Now we talk how digital can improve the energy efficiency or make the engine even better. So it's about integrating, because we talk about our living, our industry, our leisure, our everything, and energy is there. And this is what this panel will be about, because how digital and innovation can serve the purpose of energy efficiency, but the barriers we are facing, because digitalization has preliminary aspects, infrastructure, skills, regulation, standards, which yet have to be sorted out. We are not yet there. So you as panel members, you will be asked first to help us, to tell about what you are doing, how you are overcoming certain barriers, certain challenges of digitalizing the energy sector. And also you will help us with some takeaways, recommendations for other countries. It is very important, as I usually say, it's like all the world, the humanity, choosing to go in a layer upstairs. But we need all to be there. We cannot afford, we cannot really accept that part of our humanity remain under that layer. We all need to jump in and to go. This is the way sometimes to put some colors on the way I define digitalization. Without wasting time, I wanted to welcome the members of this illustrious panel. I have two ladies, Nitya, I have Aminata, I have also two great men there, Kofi and Assad. Assad, we are having problems to have Assad on both, I think. But anyway, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite you, while you will respond to the questions I will ask you, obviously to introduce yourself quickly. And for the participants, I would like to remind you the rules. You can still send some questions, inputs, comments in the chat. Obviously, if time allows us, we'll try, or at least to respond to some question if there is any. So let me start first by asking to Aminata. I will start with the lady, Aminata. Obviously, are developing countries implementing digital technologies in the energy sector? This is just to help us to understand if also our choice, our discussion makes sense to developing countries. Aminata, you have the honor to start this panel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, everyone. Just to first maybe introduce myself, I already know many of these two of the people in the panel. My name is Aminata. I'm currently working with the Vienna University of Technology and Springer Nature on a book that contains a number of authors about renewable energy, and we are specifically focused in this book also on digital tools. Now, to answer your question, Raymond, yes, they do. Developing countries use digital tools in the energy sector, actually as in many other sectors. In sub-Saharan Africa, we can name an example that I know, Akile in Senegal. A PPP that brings together the utility, Senelec, and a private company that developed a number of smart tools that include Akima, that probably one of some of the auditors from Senegal know. Akima is a tool which enable energy users to visualize their energy consumption and play with different scenarios of energy efficiency. the ultimate goal being to see the impact of these energy efficiency scenarios in their energy bill. Another example is that during my last holidays in Senegal, I was also able to experiment the pay-as-you-go system of the utilities. They called it Woyofal, which is a simple mechanism of credit recharge that works as smartphones. I found it installed already in many houses. In the supply side of the energy system, we can name the network planner that probably Kofi knows, which was developed in Accra, Ghana. And we have also different modeling tools that we see very often in the literature coming from Nigeria, which do not have specifically a name, but we know that they are there for planning the energy system. I recently also came across a USAID-backed initiative in Uganda and Kenya, the Smart Communities Coalition, and I see the first project granted proposed interesting technologies to address energy access with digital tools.
Lovely.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Aminata. Maybe Kofi would like to add something regarding the use of digital technologies or digitalization in another country of Africa, West Africa. Kofi.
Yes, thank you, Raymond. Indeed, my name is Kofi Ejiako. I work with the Energy Commission in Ghana. I'm the Director for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. And you are right that developing countries are also tackling digitalization with all the seriousness. And representing Ghana, I'm going to the voice of Ghana. Digitalization is concerned. We have developed an app which is available on Google Play Store, and you can download it free. The app is called Certified Appliance App. The background to the development of the app was that since we embarked on this energy efficiency drive right in 2005, we have made a lot of gains, and the Energy Commission has become a point of consulting when somebody wants to buy an energy efficient appliance. So our offices are inundated with calls asking one question or another, how somebody can finally settle on a good buy in terms of energy efficiency. So based on that, we decided to develop the app. And the app is very handy, very user-friendly. It gives a lot of information to the consumer to make informed decision right at the shopping floor. It has reduced the time that the consumer needs to shop around before he makes a decision. What does the app do? Number one, the app calculates the electricity bill of the appliance in Ghana cedis. So before you make the decision, the app can assist you when you select the appliance that you want to buy by inputting the unique model number of the appliance into the app. It generates all the information about the appliance that you want to buy. And one important information is the electricity bill per month and per year. It will calculate it for you. It can also give you direction to the shop where you can get that appliance from, because we've linked it to Google Map. And the app also gives you the option to search for appliances using the star rating. Because in Ghana, we use the star rating. And the more the stars, the higher the efficiency of the appliance. So the app also gives some useful energy efficiency tips, how to use the appliance in order to get optimum results from the usage. the app gives you all that information. And over the years, we have realized that the calls to the Energy Commission has reduced. The number of downloads have also gone up significantly. And what is so interesting is that the fake labels, we have found them out, because once you enter the model number into the app rejects it. And quickly it sends information to us that somebody is located at this point A, this shop, and the app is not accepting a model. So quickly the enforcement officers rush there, and then we begin to question. So consumer confidence in energy efficiency appliances have gone very high because of the use of this app, and it is on your mobile phone, so you can use it anywhere, whatever time.
Thank you very much,
situation
Kofi.
that you
I
find
think you
yourself
just mentioned
in,
also the
that
fact
app
that
is very
it's
handy
making
for
people
you. So
to
that is what
monitor
is
their
happening in Ghana.
consumption, but also is making to secure quality, protection, and compliance. Now moving to Nitya, I would like to know, because here we are talking just about the good examples. It's possible, it's being used, but sometimes we face some challenges. Can you talk about maybe some key barriers preventing in general? But if you have some examples you can share with us, it could be very, very useful and informative. So what are the key barriers preventing the introduction and establishment of digital technologies in developing countries?
Sure, thank you, Raymond. Oh, I'm getting some feedback. Okay, so I'll just introduce myself quickly first. So my name is Nitya. I'm the head of product development at Okra. Okra is an IoT energy technology company. We enable energy companies in developing countries around the world to get electricity out to off-grid households. There's over 800 million households that still don't have access to reliable and affordable electricity. And it's really important for us that we're developing technology that not only brings electricity to these houses, but does so in a financially sustainable, profitable, kind of clean way. And so, yeah, I can definitely speak to some of the challenges that we faced. I will say, before I speak to the challenge, I think one of the things that continues to go really well is interest and excitement around new innovation and digitization and kind of tech solutions that can start solving the problems that many energy developers are facing all around the world, and everyone is really excited to see what we have to say, see what the sector is saying. There's a lot of exciting innovation going on in energy technology. I speak mainly to kind of the off-grid application, but definitely beyond that as well. And I think some of the problems that we face primarily come when we start trying to hit scale. So the first one that I'll speak to is financing. On a really, really small scale, it's easy to get excitement, maybe not easy, but it's easier to get excitement, get a little bit of capital and deploy a project. But we learned very quickly in our journey that small energy companies, even large energy utilities all around the world, don't have that upfront capital to just suddenly buy the kind of upfront equipment to roll out energy infrastructure for millions of houses. So that money has to come from somewhere. And those companies might not have the expertise or the resourcing, the time to actually go out and find that money. So making it really easy for them to get financing is super important. And that's something that we've prioritized also in our technology. It's really important that we're using tech to bring down costs. So that's both on the upfront costs. How can we make the upfront costs of electrifying off-grid households cheaper by being smart and efficient in the technology that we're deploying? And then also, how can we leverage ongoing, and we're an IoT company, so the ongoing data, automation, analytics to make all of the maintenance and ongoing costs affordable and kind of bring those down as much as possible, which actually makes projects much more investable. So that's one thing I'll speak to on the financing side. And then the other that I think anyone in this sector is very well aware of is regulation, of course. So again, at a very, very small scale, you can deploy things, you can try things, and that's great. But if you really want to electrify 800 million people around the world, you need the buy-in from the the top people regulation. This is utilities that we're speaking to. And we see sort of two things that continue to be a problem. One is new technology is still being forced to comply with kind of old grid standards. So it's being shoved into this box of kind of the like early grids in developed countries like Europe and things like that. So then good technology that's cheaper, that's more reliable, that's like, checks so many boxes is actually shoved out because it just doesn't meet those standards yet. So that's a problem. And so we either see, from our perspective, we'd love to see either the market being opened in different ways, or we'd love to see tenders stop being like so focused on specific technologies that kind of meet their definition of certain terms. And instead, if we can open these tenders to any technology that can demonstrate that it delivers the quantity of power with the reliability and the cost that's necessary, and actually be able to bid for these tenders, and then you'll see that the best technology and the best innovation actually gets deployed at scale.
Thank you very much, Nitya. I will ask, because I think it's also just recalling the attention of two people I have here in the panel. I think Mahmoud and Kofi, obviously, because I think Nitya mentioned the aspects of regulations, obviously standards, but it's another thing, obviously financing, but it could be maybe the subject of another panel. But is that because in those countries you don't still have the standards or the regulation, or there is not sufficient balance on those things? You can go beyond that, because the purpose of my question is to try to let you share with us the main challenges. But apparently regulation is part of the challenge. I will give first the floor to Mahmoud, to Assad, to try to tell us, considering your own experience in Pakistan, the barrier of digitalization in the energy sector, if regulation is also a challenge. Please.
Thank you very much for raising this very important question. As Nitya has just mentioned about one of the governance related issue, which is covering the regulation aspect. As far as Pakistan is concerned, everything starts with or in other developing countries, we start looking at the national level policies, whether they are there or not for the digital transformation. So in our case, the digital transformation policy came in as well, and everything is interconnected at the end of the day with the system adaptability. From system adaptability, I mean to say there are various segments which have their own definitions of digitalization in the energy sector. When you talk about utility providers, they might have their own pros and cons, their own internal rules and regulations. When we talk about the end user, as Kofi has just mentioned, from the consumer perspective, the digitalization might have a different perspective and meaning, and whether the literacy level of digitalization or using the new apps, new tools day by day, which one is reliable or not. So even for those apps, are there any regulations which have to be followed, or is there any entity in their country which regulates the information? So so in Pakistan, with a population of about 200 million, where more than 100 million people have access, have mobile to internet, and similarly the smartphones are there within most of our developing countries. So I think with those gadgets in hands, every segment which I have just told you within the value chain, being a utility provider, being the end user, they have their own set of hindrances which they face. And specifically when we talk about the utility providers, from utility providers perspective, again, they are based, they have to rely on the internet service providers, and specifically in the remote locations from where they have to fetch the data and how to accumulate it and then assemble the data in a timely manner, and then portray useful results or real-time monitoring aspects into their systems. So that is from utility perspective, they have their own set of barriers, technical barriers or legal barriers, you can say. And one other aspect which Nithya has just mentioned, and which is also there in our policy, in the digital transformation policy, which was launched in 2018 in Pakistan. In fact, in that policy, basically there are various segments which have been covered, like how to utilize IT to optimize energy consumption in domestic, industrial, and retail sectors. And then definitely there needs to be public-private partnerships with cellular operators and utility providers to utilize 3G, 4G, or 5G network for solutions as smart grids, demand forecasting, and then similarly how to implement secure wireless smart metering systems. So that is another aspect to be looked at, and that all is covered in the digital energy, which is basically, there are like various parameters which were covered in the within the digital policy of Pakistan, under enabling the digitalization key socio-economic sectors, in which we had agriculture, e-health, and e-energy. So that e-energy was basically targeting various sustainable development goals, like Goal 7, responsible consumption and production, Goal 7, sustainable cities and communities, and similarly Goal 7, affordable and clean energy, and Goal 13, which is climate action. So I think like developing the projects around achieving these goals can help various user classes to eradicate various barriers. So I just stop over here. And
thank you very much. You have been a bit, you have been informative. You have provided a lot of information, which obviously are very interesting. Kofi, you wanted to say something very briefly, because we need to move to see, obviously, if in developing countries there is room to leapfrog, and they are convinced. Do you want to add something? You're muted, Kofi.
Raymond, I dropped off temporarily, so if you can let me know exactly so that I can add my voice.
Excellent.
Sorry.
But you will have the chance to catch up at the end, because it was just to see the main barriers, if regulation would have been a barrier. But I let you just think about that while I ask to Aminata, obviously, and to Nithya, since both of them seems to be also developing new technologies, new solutions for industries, small enterprises, but also for the consumers. If there is room to leapfrog, if you feel that digitalization is a chance for developing countries to leapfrog, you have plenty of opportunities. They can catch up and they can do something to create jobs, to recover the economy. What do you think? Starting from Aminata.
Okay. Yes, I can. There are opportunities to leapfrog for developing countries, I think. I strongly believe, and I voiced it in many occasions, that democratization is the next backbone in the agenda for transition to energy sustainability. Individual citizens need to own the agenda. And this is not so incredibly hard to bring them in, because it is a symbiosis. There are only mutual benefits in this process. Many, if not all, would like to save from their energy bill, particularly in countries of the sub-Saharan Africa region where energy costs are already high. The issue is they do not know how to get there, and information technology can be the way. I designed MOSES as a tool accessible to all, including non-energy experts, because energy planning software exists worldwide since the 1970s energy crisis. There are stars that we all know, like Merkel Times of the International Energy Agency, the Atomic Energy Agency WASP series, or Message of YASA here in Vienna, and its complements, particularly MAYET, for the demand side of the energy systems that we are addressing today. So all this software are only accessible to a niche of energy professionals. What we try to do with MOSES MOSES, by the way, is modeling cities energy systems, is to empower users such as the small cashew business in Casamas, for instance, with a tool to decide to either keep connection with the utility Senelec or to start transforming its cashew kernels to electricity. Moses also provides possibility to households to see when would it pay off to invest, for instance, in a 9 BTU air conditioner in replacement of the 12 BTU air conditioner, which is inefficient and which actually consumes 30% more electricity for an equivalent comfort temperature. Just to name a few examples of what the software can do. There are just to add something to the end, there are various technologies, efficient technologies out there in the market. Air conditioners, lamps, fridges, with yet an unleashed potential of better efficiency. Software like Moses provides this unique opportunity to build the new industries for innovation that address context-specific solutions. Like if you are in a country, for instance, Senegal, that may need a different kind of efficient technology that if you are in another country, let's say Austria, where the weather is different, the temperature, many things is different. So when we have Moses, you can know which kind of solutions the people are looking for, and you can actually design industries that provide specific solutions to this context.
Actually, you are telling me it is possible to leapfrog. It's just a matter of information, not a matter of trust. Because essentially, with the information, those population will be, and with the new devices, the technologies, they are able to save and to have energy efficiency.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, please. You wanted to complement something before giving the floor to Nitya?
No, I just wanted to say that not only the individuals over there in local communities can tell what they need, but it is also an opportunity for investors and businesses to really provide solutions that already have a potential market available outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Nitya, please.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Raymond. So yeah, I'll speak to leapfrogging energy technology because I think it's something that it's the heart and soul of what we do, and we absolutely see it as a really large part of enabling the energy transition. We don't want to see all developing countries go through the exact same energy growth that many developed countries have gone through, not only because of the dirty sources of fuel that are kind of at the heart of many of these energy infrastructures, but for many of the reasons that we can overcome now with newer technologies. One of them being the way that we can leverage data in a much more granular real-time way. So we often talk about kind of our grids in rural countries like Cambodia, Philippines, now Nigeria, and we have more understanding of what's going on, more ability to predict and analyze failure than we do in kind of the grids back in the States or in Australia or things like that. So, it's amazing when we have this amount of data, we can really bring down maintenance costs. We can leverage cool new things like machine learning models to actually predict when there could be outages and deploy demand-side management techniques to get through them while reducing blackouts versus in many developed infrastructures where if something happens, you're just going to black out entire counties, regions, states, who knows. And that kind of leads into the next thing that I wanted to say with leapfrogging as well. There's room for now decentralized energy infrastructure, kind of the ways that energy infrastructure was built, many years ago, piping coal power out to cities now doesn't need to be the case with decentralized generation from renewables. And then this means that the energy infrastructure is much more resilient. So you don't have a single point of failure where you can kind of lose power across an entire region, but instead, small microsystems can support each other and overall have much higher reliability. And then finally, and I think this has been said a little bit, but down to kind of touching back on the data side, I guess, but just the transparency and the kind of knowledge and the power that you therefore give to everyone in the chain, from the high level grid utility managers to understand exactly where their profits are, where their losses are, and help them run really successful businesses, and down to the household. Like a household in our grids can learn more about their energy usage than my parents can back in the States right now. And they can in real time. And so, and it gives them power and choice. And we see that as super valuable and is definitely the future. So we think that absolutely technology has to be leapfrogged in these countries.
Thank you very much. It has been very exciting, to hear all of you. We have 10 minutes now to conclude and to go back to the plenary. And I will have a question to all of you, obviously, but it was exciting to listen to you, to hear about what you are saying, the transparency, the fact that this will facilitate the energy transition. This will help us also at least to include everybody, and by helping them also to be part of the globalization. So the next question is a bit also challenging, because with digital, when the people hear about the digital, they think about sometimes losing the job, everything automatic, everything also being replaced, and normally they think about robotics. What are actions which have proven to be effective in creating jobs? Why we are looking at the energy efficiency? Because it's so important in those places. So if from your experience, from your daily bread, your daily activity, you happen to experience also ideas, policies, regulations, this is the time. And take also the opportunity to give us a message, a key message that those who are listening to us would like to take with them. And tomorrow can be also the base of another debate. Please, we'll be starting from the men this time. So Kofi, if you don't mind, I will give you the floor. We'll give the floor after that to Asad, to Aminata, and Nitya, you'll conclude. Kofi, you're muted.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I had a little challenge, so I didn't hear my name. Yeah, maybe before I talk about the job opportunities, allow me some seconds to add my voice, the challenges. I think that digitalization has a very good room to help us leapfrog in the area of energy efficiency. There are some barriers that need to be worked on so that the way out there will be very clear and smooth. Number one is that before you can regulate and apply MEPS, there's a need for you to have regulation to give a legal enforcement power to be able to do the regulation. And I think that member countries or those who want to go the energy efficiency way need to avert their minds to that fact. Having said that, in my part of the world, a barrier to digitization is the cost of data. Internet is a central core in the success of digitization. And here in Africa, internet cost is very prohibitive. I spend $33 a month on electricity, $15 a month on water, but $25 on data a month to be able to join conversations like this, to have a reliable internet to join conversations like this. So if you're asking somebody to invest in data to be able to be part of the digitalization, that also calls for another long period of education. So cost of data. Then the second issue has to do with the literacy rate. We now have a generation that is not technology savvy. So, and incidentally, they are the ones who make purchasing decisions now. So asking them to go digitized is also an issue. And then the cost of cybersecurity, firewall to protect data. All these things need that. Having said that, I want to say that I don't see digitization being a threat to anybody's business, because the more the dealers sell, the more they're able to expand and the more they're able to recruit. If you take our case as an example, somebody can sit in the house, select an appliance that he wants to buy, just make a phone call to the shop, and a driver and an installer will have to come and deliver.
Thank you very much.
Isn't that job creation?
Kofi, I think you said it.
That
it's not a threat. It's basically if you sort out all the problems before, as you said, regulations, infrastructure, so you will get it smooth. Sorry to cut you because the time. I think we have really few minutes to go. Yeah. So just one sentence. I give the floor to Assad. If you would like, just to conclude. Assad will take the floor after.
Yeah, as learning has no age, like people can learn at every stage. So digitalization sometimes, which is felt as a barrier, it should not be felt as a barrier. It's a facilitator. And the developing countries, like many of the developing countries, has youth in huge population. So those youth could be equipped with the digital skills, which are essential for smart appliances and integrating the systems and understanding of these things, can give them the ray of hope for the future jobs as well, rather than telling them digitalization is going to take hardcore jobs, which might not be the case. So hard core policies should be there, being governed by the public sector departments, and they should be capable to handle these smart devices and smart businesses by getting the competent people on board so that they can keep an eye and things on radar. So digitalization is the facilitator to create jobs, specifically through energy efficiency rebound effects.
Thank you very much, Assad. Aminata, you would like to add your voice to what also your predecessors have said?
Yeah, Yes, thank you, Ramon. Just one thing, because we're talking about a lot about regulation and the importance, and I know it is important to have regulation in this specific topic, but I think also in creating job market forces can take us there very easily, normally, let's say, not easily, but in a normal process. We are still in the sustainable energy industry, both renewable energy and efficiency. At this point, where the manufacturing segment concentrates the main part of the industry value. Just like 70 years ago, when television became popular, the main value was in the physical appliance. Through natural game of market forces, real prices of TV set decline and the value moved to the streaming service provider like Netflix, if we can name one. It is more or less the same for all value chains. Jobs in the industry are still mainly created in the segments that manufacture solar panels, wind turbines, hydro pipes, these hard material components. But in the future, as this segment progressively saturates through market competition, digital services will grasp bigger shares of the industry value, and we will be able to create jobs at noticeable scales. Just wanted to add that normal process will take us there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are even planning the future on that one. This is the process and we'll get there. We even have more and more jobs if the trend will go the way we want. So Nikia, please, you have now the floor and to share with us what you think about that.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely agree with everything that's been said. I see technology and digitization innovation as enablers, not shutting anyone out, but bringing more people into the workforce. I'll give kind of a specific example to our sort of philosophy and how we develop technology. And we see it as developing technology that actually enables the local workforce to engage with this infrastructure and this development in ways that they couldn't before. So we're using technology to make it easier for local technicians, local agents to now be part of how communities get electricity everywhere in the world. And we saw this being not just beneficial, but so crucial during this whole pandemic, where many people, sitting with all their access to technology in urban centers, just weren't allowed to travel out to these remote communities. And the ways that we were able to, translate information and make it really easy and accessible for the local communities to then run these systems and take ownership on their own was so critical to the business, but also so empowering. And the more people that get energy, it's a great cycle. The more people that get energy, the more shops, the more women who are empowered. They're kind of the jobs that come out of energy as just the starting point is endless. And I'm speaking only from kind of the energy access sector, but I'll say that it's a multi-billion-dollar, hundreds of billions of dollars industry. And so there's a lot of jobs to be had, and technology is just making it easier to reach these people and get energy out there. And by doing so, it's bringing so many more people into the workforce.
Thank you very much. I can see we are almost there. We have 1 minute left, but somebody would like to enforce or emphasize the fact that policies are important. Normally, I'm a standard man, so I would like to talk about the standards, but here we talk more about the regulations, because I want the standards is setting the ground, showing the road, not imposing something like the regulation, but here we talk about regulation more, and I really accept it. But policies are maybe on the bottom, on the top, and obviously setting all the scene. And obviously, it is important in those countries they have an energy efficiency and a renewable energy policy. It's very important in developing countries. I don't want to finish without thanking members of this panel, because I found it really a good panel, balance for those who are promoting the technologies, those who are the regulation, those who are promoting also and seeing really all what it means to start the transition, like you said, the energy transition, and to be there, not to leave no one behind. So I wanted to thank you, Kofi, to thank you, Asad, to thank you, Aminata, to thank you, Nitya. And I hope, obviously, you have, entertained people, and the people will, after that, link up with you and have further conversation, and who knows, maybe other development projects. I really thank you, and sorry about interrupting you sometimes, but it was also at least the rules of the game, so they imposed to me, but it was a pleasure having you here. And I hope also the participants enjoy your thought, your interactions. So we can join the plenary if you don't mind, because we'll have to summarize also what just we share here in this panel room. Thank you very much again.
So my name is Pastia Mayogola, and I am from the SDG 7 Youth Constituency representing East and Southern Africa, but I also work as a program manager at the Society for International Development Office in East Africa, managing the Environment, Climate, and Sustainable Energy Futures Project. And it is a pleasure to moderate this session today and to be part of this incredible panel to discuss the enablers of progress under the theme Innovation and Digitalization for Energy Efficiency. Now, just before we start off, I'd like to give a very brief introduction of the incredible panel we have today. So first of all, we are joined by Mr. Sabine Basniat, and my apologies, I hope I am saying this name correctly, Sabine Basniat, and he is the Senior Energy Efficiency Specialist at the Green Climate Fund, the GCF, the Division of Mitigation and Adaptation. And we will be looking forward to hearing your perspectives on the questions that we're going to be asking today. Second, we're joined by Mr. Peter Benich, and he is the Senior Policy Officer at the Swedish Energy Agency, SEDA. And we also have with us Mr. Jalal Chabchwop, and he is the Chief Investment Officer / Energy Efficiency Expert at the Africa Development Bank. And finally, but not least, we're joined by Mr. Dan Hamza Goodacre, and he is the Non-Executive Director at the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program, KSEP. So welcome to you all, and perhaps I will just give you all a second or two to say hello and before we start our session. So we'll start with you, Peter.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter. I got a break here, but I'm from the Swedish Energy Agency working with energy efficient policies in the EU and also involved in the project called ELA, Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances. So we're discussing a lot about capacity building, different regulations and test methods and lab capacity. And digitalization is, of course, an enabling technology that comes into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for that brief introduction. We'll move on to Mr. Sabine.
Thank you very much, Pasi. Yes, Sabine Basnet, Senior Energy Efficiency Specialist at the fund, at the Green Climate Fund. I currently lead our energy efficiency practice as well as our low emission practice as well. And I basically work on more of the public sector side of things, you know, structuring deals and basically looking at it from two angles, enabling environment as well as investments, and then also looking and support my private sector folks on the sector side of things to really provide that industrial knowledge that's needed for private sector deals to happen as well. So, yeah, looking forward to this interactive session with all of you. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Sabine. We'll move on to Dan Hamza.
Thank you, Patty, and hi, everybody. As you said, I work for the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program. It's a global program funded by philanthropic foundations and governments, set up about 4 years ago to try and improve the energy efficiency of cooling in tandem with the phase down and out of super polluting F gases as required by the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And we work in about 50 countries around the world and work on policy and technology and finance in particular. So my comments today will be about the cooling sector. So that's particularly air conditioning and refrigeration, and more on the innovation side than digitization. I very much look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Jalal.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet electronically with you. My name is Jalal Shabshub. I'm in charge of the energy efficiency at the African Development Bank. So I have the different project which is related to the energy efficiency on the different level. So it's my pleasure to participate today with you in this discussion.
Thank you. And with those introductions, we're definitely set to have a very interesting, multifaceted discussion this afternoon on the enablers for progress. Before we jump into the interesting questions we have for our panel today, I just want to encourage the participants joining us. Please feel free to type your messages, your comments on the chat box, your questions that might come in, and if time allows, we'll be able to tackle them and answer them as we go along. But I want to quickly jump into the conversation for today, and I want to start with the first question, and I will address this question to you, Peter, first. What key actions have been identified to promote digital technologies?
Thank you, Pasi. I think actually Gabriella covered it all, more or less, so I feel lazy. But I think one thing she didn't really sustain, maybe, which is important, is to have a strategy on the regional level. So in EU, we have a digitalization strategy, and I think also the African Union has developed one. So you set up the goals, vision and goals, and I think also the African Union has for 2030. I don't know about other regions, but I assume they also have that. And I think that is very, very important as a common framework, because then you can develop the policies, what governments can do, what they do. And also, if I take Africa then as an example again, there are different member states, and if I understand correctly, they have developed already national strategies, but then it's important, I think, to align them. So cover all from technical infrastructure, maybe 5G networks, to building skills, to business modeling and all that. So and if you have that, then you can work in a systematic way to sort of find the way forward and gaps and all that. So I think I stopped there for a while. These comments.
Yes, and I think you bring in a very important point, that we were given a very nice agenda setting for our discussion, but we didn't really get that punch on how, you know, we can trickle some of these actions, especially at the regional level and even at a sector level. So I'm hoping we can debunk some of these things. So maybe I will go to you, Jalal, from an AFDB perspective. What are some of the key actions perhaps you're taking as an institution, or that you have identified to promote digital technologies?
Okay, thank you so much for that. Well, let me highlight first that digitalization and sustainability converge. And this convergence in business and society offer executive both opportunities and challenges within the organization and across also organizational boundaries. Companies are using digital tools to map their environmental footprint and assess the impact of environment shifts on their business. Where new digital technologies are improving sustainable innovation, even as they are creating new vulnerabilities like cybercrime and privacy losses. However, innovation and smart technologies are paramount in the global commitment for sustainable living in a more energy efficient world. And digitalization can change energy production and consumptions. While the impact on the supply side is relevant, it can be even more important on the demand side, as the spread of digital devices enable large potential improvement in energy efficiency in the different sector and end users. And this was highlighted by Gabriela. So actions to promote technology can reach and concern all the different involved parties, from the production to the final end user. So if I focus on the energy efficiency, and any energy efficiency decision should start from accurate data collection and analysis. In this perspective, digitalizations mean designing and implementing technologies that can gather, manage, and correlate data to make changes to the physical environment and decrease the overall energy consumptions, or use available energy in more responsible way. One of the main key actions for energy efficiency that drive to digitalization is the need for real-time and accurate, transparent, and repeatable data to support decision-making, as was highlighted also earlier by Gabriela. So I think which is important, and this is what we are trying also to support through our activities at the African Development Bank, it is the implementation of a good practice for energy auditing, where important to consider the measurement campaign as one of the pillars to use or to develop good, bankable, and acceptable energy efficiency projects, where the follow-up, it's important on the viability of such project, and where using technologies to gather the data in real time, it's really very important. So gathering the data is the first initial step, using the data which with advanced data metering or data processing platform and user-friendly tools that can support the track of a more energy efficiency route. Highlighting again that digitalization means the implementation of technologies to gather and manage and correlate data. It is important to reach such digitalization with the right people and the right skills that is really needed to have to develop such markets. So actions should go beyond only training to simply use digital tools, which was, for example, from the different more advanced in the communication system, such telephones and so on, which is really not enough to develop the energy efficiency market. The different actors and stakeholders need to be trained to develop and innovate in emerging technologies and also take part of the development process of the hardware also and the software. And this is what we try to do at the African Development Bank by supporting all the activities that can promote the development of the technologies. Let me also highlight that the digitalization process pace, it's different from one country and another, and it's based on each country readiness and the reached advances for digitalization. I mean here, existing infrastructure, needs from the different sectors, availability also of skills, and what has highlighted, it is the strategy for development and growth in the country strategic field. So actions to promote digital technologies are different from one country to another and should start with what I call the readiness assessment to identify the technology opportunities and obstacles, which is really important to see where what to start, identify and deliver capacity buildings based on the country's specific needs and conditions, involved also all the stakeholders in drafting a digitalization strategy and identify regulatory, institutional, and technical support needs, and also plan for a job market transformation, which I think quite important to develop. I just conclude to mention also that is one of the important pillars is the policy. So the benefit of digital energy efficiency are realized through policies that address a range of issues, such as data accessibility and data privacy to help remove regulatory barriers to innovation. So the International Energy Agency already identified a set of policies that can be found on their website. But let me just mention only one important thing is encouraging technology and business model innovation is one of the keys to reach at least one of the path, or to prepare, if I can say, an environment where we can path the way for digitalization. So just to conclude, I can just say that digitalization, it's a long process and needs a good strategy, planning, and involvement of the different stakeholders. And also, which is important, identification of all needed resources for implementations. So let me stop here to give the floor to the other speakers, and thank you. Pasi, back to you.
So much, and I think you opened up a whole Pandora's box, from policy to regulation to business opportunities, and even touching a little bit on the differences in different countries. And I love the fact that there is a different group looking at country perspectives, and I'm really looking forward to what will come out from that discussion. But at this point, I want to just check with Dan, Hamza, what is your perspective on some of the key actions that have been identified? Is there any we've missed out, or one in specific that you'd like to highlight from your perspective?
Thank you, Pasi. Well, obviously coming at this from a cooling perspective and thinking about innovation, there's a lot that can be done, including on digitization and personal controls and Bitcoin and so forth. But the two areas I wanted to highlight, which have been touched on, I guess, in terms of financing and policy innovation. The first is on finance, and through the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program, we've worked on at least what we would consider to be innovative financial and business models called cooling as a service. And the innovation here is really to try and switch away from thinking that we have to buy and own and then unfortunately often throw away unsustainably goods in order to benefit from the services that they provide, when actually we can contract for the services direct and not have to worry about buying them owning them or having to throw them away. And an example of this that can bring it to life is cooling as a service for smallholder farmers, particularly in developing countries, but they can't necessarily afford the cold hubs, the cold storage facilities to keep their produce fresh and nutritiously valuable before it gets to market. And providers can instead make those cold hubs available, and the farmers can pay for access to the cooling without having to make the capital expenditure at the beginning. So we've been working with an organization called BASE, the Basel Agency for Sustainable Energy. They've been progressing a cooling as a service initiative, and that's been raising awareness around the world and helping to facilitate contracts between businesses. They just received a generous grant from the Rockefeller Foundation to scale up their work, particularly for smallholder farmers in India, and in partnership with MasterCard, actually, to bring in the sort of digitization mobile angle. So that's the first, thinking about new business models, and also just getting out of the concept of having to buy something. You know, the capex is a hurdle. Well, don't worry about buying it. Try and benefit from the service. That's the first. And then secondly, I still think there's more innovation that's needed in the policy landscape. And for efficiency, a lot of work's been done successfully on minimum energy performance standards. Certainly, we at the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program have worked a lot on that, and they're critical for cutting. I don't want to call it the junk, but anyway, cutting the lower quality, lower efficiency models out of the market, right? So they're really important, but they are minimum standards, and we are in a race to zero, and a race to zero does not get achieved through an approach on what's minimum or minimal. And so we really need to innovate around what's the suite of policies that gets us to the top, not just cuts out the bottom. And labeling is key. It creates transparency. It informs better choices, but it doesn't necessarily require a consumer to do something. It's more for informational purposes, but it helps to go further up to the top. And then of course you have lots of subsidy mechanisms, whether that's reductions in VAT or paying as you save mechanisms, as well as prizes such as the Global Cooling Prize that really try and drive innovation at the top, and more targeted R&D. So I think we need to be a little bit more forensic about the policy mix that takes us up the ladder. Yeah, we cut out the bottom, but how do we actually reach the top in order to get to zero? So greater innovation, and maybe a lot of that is actually just greater clarity about which policies work best where on the ladder. Over and out.
Dan Amza, and I think you said something that really caught my attention. You said the race to zero needs innovation that gets us at the very top of some of the solutions that we're trying to figure out. So thank you so much for that. I want to twist this conversation a little bit and add a different aspect and perhaps bring in Sabine to the conversation. And Sabine, my question to you is, given some of the key actions that have been identified by our colleagues, what is blocking the implementation of these key actions to promote digital technologies?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I just kind of build upon what the previous speaker said. I think I equate digitalization to the overall problem that we have in energy efficiency as a whole. I mean, it's energy efficiency implementation, and I take that as visualization. I mean, you're seeing the effects of energy efficiency and really kind of noting what is energy efficiency is always has been a challenge, and I think that remains a challenge, and I think that's where we really need to kind of tackle things. And I think what Dan just said in terms of standards and labeling, and standards and labeling really kind of gets you to really show that people are, oh yeah, I have the an efficient product, or I'm doing the most efficient processes. So that really kind of brings in that part in there. But at the same time, you need policies like again, going back to Dan's point, not just on the cooling, but overall on the energy efficiency side as well. I mean, I think minimum energy performance standards are a good beginning, and then in countries, especially in the developing countries, where the policies are so overreaching that where nothing is actually implemented, starting off with MEPS and then with SNL to really kind of get keep on moving up the ladder. I think that's very, very critical. I mean, I think one of the best examples that we can give to you is, and this all kind of needs to kind of be wrapped around, I think what behavioral change. Because I mean, you can bring a horse to a trough, but you can't make the horse drink it, right? So you need to make sure that the behaviors put in there, and it's incentivized. I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, we ran a project. We have a project with EBRD in industries, which is really looking at behavioral change. So it's about both on the high impact side. It's really about data gathering. It's about really raising the bar of an industry up, and based on the behavioral change that's reflected in the industry. I mean, and that's where the financial incentives actually kick in as well. So hopefully by the end of the project, you'll have these companies that are actually really high energy consumers really switch towards a much more of an efficient culture per se in their industries, and then the subsidiaries alike as well. So I think those are kind of couple of key things that really need to happen, and I think that's what we're trying to do at the Green Climate Fund, is really look at things from a much more of a systemic point of view. What are the policies? I mean, we have good policies, and can we back up those good policies with good business models and good financial mechanisms that can really kind of translate policies to implementation? I think that's gonna be very key. I mean, having great policies is fine, but if they just remain in the shelves of the ministry, then that does no one any good, right? We need that shelf to come out, have some money put in there in some other way, and then really kind of get things going. And then for me, I mean, the Green Climate Fund, we believe in risk financing. So therefore, if it's a little risky, I mean, we'll do it. But I mean, I think but we got to start doing it, right? I mean, we may be wrong, but I mean, being wrong in this case is actually right. If that makes any sense. Thank you.
And my mute button. By Peter, I see you have a comment. I'll give you the floor at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I really agree what Sabine and Jalal and Dan said. So you really need the policies in place, of course, but well, according to the little experience I have from the African project ELA, it's a big hurdle because the capacity is not always there. And then I speak about the institutional capacity. So there's one thing to decide on the regulations, but there's a completely different thing to actually monitor and have enforcement of these regulations. So I think that is of top priority for governments. That's really the governmental role. So in the ELA project, we try to well, support that in the Southern and Eastern African region. Have to work, or they are better off sharing things like lab capacity, discussions on where the market is. I have a lot of respect from that. The different markets are really different mature, so you have to understand that retailers, procurers, and consumers, they are different levels. But then again, I think digitalization is really because you can help all actors to understand whenever they procure something, they can understand what the market is, what's available on that market, etc. So digitalization as a tool to sustain and help capacity building, I think is a promising route to go. I can come to that later, maybe speaking about the third question later, what we can do to the regions maybe.
That's our next question, but I'll just give an opportunity to Dan. Would you have anything to add on to some of the challenges and blockages?
Thank you, Pasi. Yes, and building on the comments about the importance of compliance and the need for capacity building, there's the testing that's required of the actual products themselves, and then there's working out what happens actually in the marketplace. Are the right products coming into the country? What's going onto the shelf? So there's a big challenge there, and I think that's often an even greater challenge in developing countries rather than in developed. So support what colleagues have said there. I mean, if I can just get really a little bit more granular about some of the challenges of racing to the top of the market. So for cooling, we know that residential air conditioners, can be super efficient, really at the top of the scale. But often even the testing in some of the best laboratories doesn't pick up the additional efficiency gains that come from some of the sort of features of some of the residential air conditioners, and that might be related to their ability to provide evaporative cooling. It might be their ability to provide radiative cooling. It might be their ability to deal with the humidity. It might be with the load. There's factors that impact on the efficiency, and they're not always picked up by the tests. And the challenge here is that when you then have a labeling system that can't pick up the super efficiency and bundles everything in the top end of the scale into one category. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, everything above 5 is in the same category recognized as A. Then there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that are all, from the perspective of the consumer, the same. Yeah. And so what's the incentive to the manufacturer in producing something that's a 9 or 10 if nobody knows it's 9 or 10, unless there's another way of communicating to them that it is 9 or 10, right? So we don't have enough specificity in some of the labeling systems in order to do that, and that they do need to be ratcheted over time. And some countries are good at that. I would say, the United Kingdom last week actually changed the system, because we've got A++, and A++, and A+, and A, right? And psychologically, most people think, well, I've got an A, brilliant, I've got an A, yeah. So and they don't really care about the A++ and the A++. It starts to get a little bit non-motivational. So I feel like we need to be a little bit more forensic again about what are we testing for? Can we recognize the efficiency, and then can we link the labeling and the subsidies, right? So if everything also that's above 5, in my example, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, gets the same subsidy, then what's the incentive for producing the 9 or the 10 and not just producing the 5 if the 5 is cheaper and no one really knows about it? So yeah, we need to be smarter about that, smarter about recognizing super efficiency and the policies that can then drive the market.
I think most of the time we fail to recognize this, and I see Peter telling you that you can use procurement specs to address multiple requirements for that. So very good feedback in the chat box. I want to move us to the next questions, just so that we can have enough time to discuss the themes that we were to discuss today. But before I do that, I want to recognize a comment that came in on the chat box, and perhaps it's even a question we can think of and maybe answer as we go along. And Lena is saying, speaking of enabling, I work with strategic philanthropists working to address many sustainability issues. How can energy efficiency / SDG 7 / supporting innovations in this space be made a priority and accessible space for philanthropists? So how can they feed in, and who can they work with? And he or she continues to say that should they be working with corporate partners, multilateral banks, NGOs? And she would really appreciate our thoughts on this, especially to you all as experts in this topic. But as we reflect upon those questions, I want to usher us into question number 3, and perhaps could even to Lena's question. Can international development organizations support developing countries to overcome the key challenges that we have identified in our previous question and answers? And I want to just bring the conversation back to you, Jalal, and maybe just hear from you how can international development organizations support developing countries to overcome the challenges? And I want to link this question also to the huge digital divide and accessibility to the different digital technologies that exist, especially given the fact that every single day the world is progressively becoming digital in nature. So how can we support developing countries? You have the floor, Jalal.
Thank you. Thank you, Passy. Well, the international development organizations are already supporting countries through capacity buildings for digitalization path assessment within the undergoing project, the infrastructure project and programs related to energy sector, especially related to the energy sector. And this is both on the demand and supply side. So the support is there almost in all the projects, because we consider that as I said earlier, digitalization is one of the paths for sustainable development. However, as Sabine said, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And unfortunately, this is the reality. So the digitalization is considered in all aspects in our project. However, integration or implementation are not always possible to the lack of enabling environment for the application and adoption of advanced technologies. And as I have mentioned earlier, digitalization and sustainability and sustainable development converge in the same path. And the real plus of digitalization is the opportunity to both increase end use efficiency and the efficiency of the entire energy system. And this is our objective in what we are doing as development bank, and also what the other international development organizations are doing. Considering the African context, many African countries are facing big challenges to ensure energy production runs as efficient as possible, with power supplied when it's needed and consumed when it's available. Considering the rising use of renewable and community self-generation, smart digital technology can ultimately benefit to overall system through avoided investment in additional energy infrastructure, improved integration of renewable, and enhanced energy security among other impacts. And this is what also we are focusing on it. So as a more decentralized system getting implemented in many countries, flexibility and increasingly important to ensure energy productions. And this is mainly by using also digital integration in almost all the projects. So to summarize a little bit our intervention or the support of the international organization, development organization that have a long history on the development, and especially we are supporting all the projects from just to mention some of it. We are supporting the investment in communication infrastructure and networks, which is also one of the pillars for digitalization. We are providing technical assistance for implementation required pillars for more convenient environment for energy efficiency and market development, supporting also assessment of the digitalization opportunities and introduction of proven advanced technology within project and program we are developing or we are financing. We have built capacity and trained stakeholders in digitalization space, and notably in the energy and efficiency related field. We have some dedicated funds to encourage startup, especially in the field of new technologies and services development, which is also including digitalization, and also supporting countries in policies development based on the country's specificities, advancement, and needs. So we are covering, trying to give the support as much as we can. And to conclude, I can say that in the development field, nature, society, and business are interconnected in a complex way. And this is what we are focusing on, to make it understood by decision makers, especially while considering digitalization as the component of sustainable development path. So I stop here, and Pasi, over to you.
So much, and I'm being reminded that our time is running out, yet the conversation is just getting better for me. So I'm gonna link question 3 and 4 and give the floor to you, Sabine, because I want to come back to you, especially from a climate finance perspective, and just kind of give you the same question that I gave Jalal, but also nudge you to answer our final question, which is, what are some of the actions that can support digitalization of developing countries, starting from a low base?
Precisely. Okay, so I think I'll answer both together. I think my answer kind of makes sense in that. So on the GCF side, I mean, I think we have a couple of financing windows, and then one of our key things that I actually really love about what we have at the fund is what we call our readiness financing, or readiness TA, which is available to all of our countries. And then so this is $1 million per year, and that really helps countries to really kind of say, okay, yes, do I want to go into digitization? How? What? And then they can really start using that money to really say, okay, let me start, working on what are the different things that I need, and then build up my infrastructure and everything else. And then that leads on to projects on the back end, right? So I think, these are things that we're kind of doing across Africa and Asia as well, especially with on the energy efficiency side with MEPS, mobile payment. I think that's one of the key things that we're also missing out is, how do you really kind of bring mobile payment into the front so that, you can really, get more investments through small scale investments as well. So readiness is a big part of our GCF financing. And then the other part that I think what we do, especially on the GCF, and then I think any of the large international organization is, I think we're able to kind of, bring together countries' ambitions and different kind of things in the sectors into a more systemic think, right? So, I mean, you may have one or two pieces that are kind of out there, but I think, having been able to kind of bring in the different stakeholders together, then you kind of build in the systemic think, which is really critical to really kind of, bringing about a much more of an integrated project in place. And also, I mean, just as an example, I mean, when we were basically financing a transport project in Pakistan, so this turned out to be a hybrid bus BRT system, but we were always, we were talking with different parts in the ADB, everybody else, like, what is the exact benefits of a hybrid system versus a non-hybrid system, and no one really had the tangible data for this. And then so we were able to kind of say, okay, let's install a meter on this, which gets us the data and everything else. And then, now we can actually have a collective data that can, that we can use as a global resource. It's not just the project resource, but it now becomes, once the project starts running and gets the data and gets analyzed, it becomes a global resource. So I think these are things that international agencies bring to a country. And then these are things that even for countries that are starting at a low base can take advantage of and kind of say, okay, look, we want to kind of, hurdle 2 or 3 steps and go to the, step 5. And then, to get there, okay, we may need ABCD, so help us get to that ABCD part. And I think those are things that we bring together. And I think the GCF, that's what we're all about. And then working with partners like AFDB, with other multilateral banks, I think we've been able to kind of, really bring some really innovative projects, as well as innovative thinkings and business models into the space as well, both for digitization, energy efficiency, and then, and we're now also going into the cooling space as well with Dan and the folks to really kind of see what we can really do on the business side. Yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Alvin. And I think what's coming out clearly is that collaborating to come up with these different investments in different spaces is very key, especially moving forward, and for us to have an enabling environment for progress. Because we're in the concluding mood of things in our panel right now, I want to just give a few minutes to the rest of the panel to give their kind of concluding remarks as they answer question 4, which was what actions can support digitalization of developing countries, especially from a low base. So I'll give the floor to Peter, and then Dan, and then Jalal as we close.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So Peter.
Well, I'm thinking about, it was mentioned, and also off-grid solutions. I think there, and also something we from the sort of on-grid countries can learn a lot from, because there you really need the most efficient equipment. At the same time, they're not always affordable. But I think you can start with off-grid systems and connect them. And then coming back to the remark from Gabriela that data centers are so expensive and consuming, I'm thinking about, you can call it distributed computing. You don't always need this fancy data center somewhere which draw like the energy consumption of the town. You can have like smaller computers connecting those off-grid systems. And then you spoke a lot about managing the whole system from production, distribution, and end use. Utilizing digitalization for managing the whole system to match production, and that is something also of relevance for on-grid countries like Sweden. We have a lot of renewables coming into the grid now, and we have to manage that somehow. And at the same time, we do a lot of electrification. So the traditional energy system is under transformation. And there we do the triple helix. I think Gabriela spoke about that too. We try to think about, okay, if there's waste heat, we try to use it in district heating, or a fish tank or a greenhouse. Or so I think also from a very low level you can start to think across sectors how to be smarter. and since you do that from the beginning, this is software and so more. So I think that thinking is actually promoted by the fact that the resources are scarce. So I stop there.
Very good points there. I think we definitely have to think across sector. Again, so we tend to think that energy issues are separate from sustainability issues or business issues, but I think an opportunity to have a multifaceted, multi-sectoral approach exists here, especially moving forward. So Dan, I'm going to give you the floor at this point.
Thanks again, Pasi. So from the perspective of the least developed countries and what's particular or to them and the opportunity, I have two thoughts. Firstly, to really try and leapfrog technologically, probably also in policy terms, just make sure that we're not thinking about development being linear. A lot of progress has been made, depending on how one quantifies it, in the so-called developed world. But a lot of mistakes have been made as well, right? and a lot of pollution. And so we really have to make sure we break out of that mindset of thinking about development being linear and think about leapfrogging opportunities. That's the first thing I'd say. And the second thing actually really is just to reiterate the example I gave earlier of cooling as a service. And we know that in many least developed countries, interest rates are quite high, and financial institutions can be more risk averse in terms of lending money, whether they're public or private. And that creates an opportunity to think about not having to lend the money, right? So again, stop thinking about capex as a barrier that needs to be overcome, and start thinking about the services that people want. They want to be kept cool if it's hot. They want lighting. They don't necessarily have to own the lights, or they want to be kept warm if it's too cold. So these are energy services, and if we break out of the mold of thinking about everyone having to buy something, we can overcome some of the high interest rates, some of the risks of financial deals, and then work with intermediaries who banks have more confidence in, and they can interface with the customer much closer to the ground. So I think that's an opportunity for least developed countries as well.
Definitely bringing in and putting the people's needs first and seeing that as an opportunity to then progress, invest, and seek more opportunities. Jalal, I'm going to give you the final word for our discussion today.
Thank you so much. Just to complete what I have said, digitalization, it's important for development or sustainable development path. However, no doubt having a minimum set of policies in place to secure natural development and convergence to the digital era with appropriate environment condition is quite necessary, notably concerning information security, legal recognition of digital technologies, and equitable access to digital technologies and infrastructure, which I think really quite important. So development of the market needs policies, framework where services and equipment provider and digitalization projects can have an enabling, secure, and sustainable development environment. So I conclude with this.
So much, Alana. I think our time has run out. I say thank you to you all. It was a great pleasure, moderating this session, and it was also quite overwhelming being the representative of the women and the youth at the very same time in our discussion. But I think from the discussion, there is a lot that women in different spaces can benefit in their businesses and in their engagements, and also for youth. And I speak for youth because we are the ones who are uptaking and using some of these digital opportunities that are coming up in the digital technologies, and even beginning to be the people that are teaching other people how to use them and how to use them efficiently. And I was speaking just as a way of concluding, we are doing a future of data governance process at the School of International Futures in partnership with SID. And I think one of the things that we're discussing among the youth is, what is the future of data governance? And clearly we see that energy is a key enabler. And as the world is continually becoming digital, studying working has become a tool of today. And so young people definitely have an opportunity to key in and to be part of this discussion and to be part of the movers and shakers moving forward. So this is me giving the voice from the youth constituency, SDG 7 youth constituency. So once again, I want to thank you. We are requested to go back to the main group, but I hope that these conversations will continue beyond then. And this platform enables us to be able to have one-on-one discussions with the experts. Thank you so much, panelists, for answering some of the questions that were coming in through the chat box. I appreciate you for that. And let's keep the conversation going. I think together we can ensure that we're progressing in the right way, sustainably, and in a manner that leaves no one behind. Thank you so much, and see you in the main stage.
These were how your guesses. So you can see here, so we have like the maximum was for 43%, then we have 28%, 10%, and 77%. So most of you have guessed 43%, but the right answer was 10%. So according to the International Energy Agency. So on this note, I would like to welcome our moderators to share the outcome with us. So I will invite Rana Gonem to also come on the stage.
Hi, Raymond.
Hello.
Hello, hi. So we're just going to wait for the other two moderators, Pasi and Anurag, to share the audio and video with us so that we can start with reporting on the takeaways. But it seemed like a very interesting discussion. I hopped around the different sessions and really great insights that everyone was giving. So hi, welcome, Anurag.
Thank you, Rana. Hi, Raymond. And apologies for the delay. Our panel extended a little bit.
I can imagine the discussions are quite interesting and people want to continue. So I think we're only missing Pasi, but perhaps in the interest of time. Okay, here she is. Pasi is now joining us. Hey, hi Pasi, good to see you again.
Hi, good to see you. I'm finally here, and sorry for the delay. Our discussions are very nice. And
yeah, I saw that just when you were getting there where you wanted, we had to bring you back. So sorry for that. But we just tried to get the maximum out of the session. And I think having these breakout rooms as well allows us to really collect quite a lot of inputs from different experts. So thank you so much. And I guess what we would be keen on is to hear your perspectives on, what are the main takeaways that are coming out from the discussions. And perhaps I'll start actually from the global perspective. So Anurag, if you want to share with us the main takeaways that came out of the Global Perspectives group.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rana. Let me just quickly revisit because we had quite a lot of intense discussion. But I think a couple of things that was the highlight was the need of, awareness about the digitalization, capacity building, and also creating, the technical expertise and know-how and building, local capacity in whether it's developing markets or it's developed markets, depending on their own challenges, and how do we build the capacity around that is very, very important. There was a lot of emphasis around the, development of standardized kind of frameworks for cybersecurity to allow building consumer trust. And that was another thing. I think in terms of jobs, there was there was one thing that was highlighted was the new set of jobs that will, be required to focus on. We'll see the development of jobs around, need for data management experts, energy efficiency engineers and energy efficient analysts, experts around energy trading, more jobs around data scientists, jobs around cloud computing. So a lot of upgrading or reskilling of the youth or the talent in these markets will be required. One thing that there was also a big highlight was, appropriate regulatory frameworks in the markets and a more collaboration between the various stakeholders, whether it's, the the research and innovation related stakeholders from academia to industry to the startups and to the innovators. So how can we foster more collaboration across these stakeholders? Then I think in the end, one big, a recommendation that I asked from every panelist was, so that I would like to kind of share, I think needs to have more voluntary programs, or, or even if there are mandatory programs, but how do we incentivize consumers and, by marketing, by creating awareness, by educating them about the benefits of adoption of, energy efficient technologies, and embracing, digitalization as kind of the core of what's to make sure we get towards the, goal where no one is left behind, whether it's Africa or whether it's globally, but really ensuring that in this whole not race around digitalization, but how do we ensure it's inclusive and where no one is left behind. And it's not just about also providing financial support, but also how do we ensure institutions becomes effective matchmakers between technology providers and the technology users, and strengthening their capacities and and the delivery of their services. And I think one more thing was around the need of engaging different municipalities as part of stakeholder engagements, and ensuring there are regulatory frameworks in place that kind of creating that space where kind of capacity building is happening to deploy the newest skills of the youth or the the talent in that. So I think that's kind of summing up a lot of things we discussed, but I'm sure I have missed out some other interesting stuff. Yeah, but
I find the notion of giving incentives for the consumers interesting, because I feel like with digitalization, actually, the consumers are really in the driver's seat, because a lot of the services are being done more digitally, and so consumers are influencing the larger corporates and everybody really in terms of accepting these disruptions and disruptive business models. So I find it interesting that you thought in the group that needs incentives. Let's shift to Raymond and hear more about, on the country side, what were some of the challenges and opportunities that you discussed? What are the main takeaways from the discussion, Raymond?
Thank you very much, Rana, and it was a pleasure for me. And obviously, I wanted to commend you for the great job. And in the panel, so we had a kind of gender balance also, which is also showing really what needs to be done, by the way. And it was exciting to see from my side that all of them, because I usually working on digitalization, and that I face some resistance sometimes, the people thinking about maybe digitalization is not yet up to developing countries. But here it was for the energy efficiency, things are already happening. Things are happening, and like you rightly mentioned it, the consumers, it is for the benefit of the consumers, and they are in the driving seat somehow. And they will take even advantage of this one if it's going forward. If the process will increase, normally it will facilitate those countries to do what they need to do for the energy transition. And so that is why, starting from the first question, where we are saying, if it is happening in developing countries, without hesitation, all of them, yes. And so far it's going well. But we have some challenges. The challenges are, like they mentioned in the global vision, I think, the regulation framework. So it can go better and faster. But also they mention infrastructure and technology. The cost of information technology is high, they mention. It is very important and to look at that. It's important to look at the finance for those who are working for the technology. And this is the vision of somebody developing the technology to be used after that for the energy efficiency, digital technology. And they mention another thing which is important also, it is the literacy. I think in other cases, we just use skills. But here you have the skills for the technology developers. You can have also the literacy. You need to make also those technology to fit really the morphology or the structure of those societies, because you have sometimes a very important percentage of people who are not highly literate. So in terms of barriers, I mentioned obviously infrastructure, data, literacy, regulation. We discuss a lot about the regulation. Financing, I think it is always the problem when we adopt new technologies, we try to adopt them. What was also very important and interesting is the leapfrog, the opportunities for the future. They all responded, yes, this is the opportunity to leapfrog. I mentioned before, to do what we need to do, the energy transition, but they went beyond. They said, this is a real opportunity to create jobs, which normally also in other sectors, when I talk about digitalization, I think I had even discussion with you, we think about robots, we think about other things which are going just to steal the job to the people, from the people. But here, no, it was just this may be the way to go to create more jobs and to recover. More jobs, because from the production using it, it will create also, it will be the time for the service opportunities. We can develop, we can create around all the devices, all the technologies which are being created and developed now. So the takeaway, obviously, this is what actions they have done and they would like to recommend for the creation of the job. We don't have so much time, but they insisted a lot on regulations. Regulations need to follow, need to be there to facilitate, obviously, the development of energy efficiency opportunities. Somebody mentioned also policies, but I think policies is complementing or is setting the ground and the regulation is coming. I try to influence saying standards, other things, but they kept saying regulations. And obviously, don't forget about the other thing I mentioned before, finance, infrastructure, and so on. Back to you, Anna.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I can fully understand, because regulation can actually really kill a lot of these disruptive forces that are coming. So if there is not enabled, I mean, we see it in other services like the transport sector and Uber and others. I mean, you know, without having had that regulation, there's really a pushback on that. So I guess it is a very important element. And now let's shift to Pasi, and here, I mean, the enablers for progress. That was less of a gender balanced panel. Sorry about that, but I have to say that the VEF team really works very hard on that, and Otalia in this case is really always trying to ensure that it's in place as much as possible. So Pasi, please let us know, what are the main takeaways from your discussion?
Thank you. And I had an incredible a panel of incredible gentlemen and experts in the field who I don't think I can summarize in 2-3 minutes all the impactful and key things that they had to say, especially as enablers for progress. But I will attempt. Most of them have already been highlighted by my colleagues that have given a summary. But I think from our panel, it was very key one of the key discussions that came out was the need to have a regional assessment, especially when it comes to digitalization and innovation for energy efficiency. And I think we even highlighted that we'll be looking forward to some of the discussions that will come from the country and the global perspectives on this issue. So that was very paramount as a beginning point. And then the second point was planning for the job market transformation, because obviously there is a huge opportunity for increased employment, increased business opportunities, and even investments. So beginning to plan and to look at the digitalization and innovation, especially for energy efficiency, from an angle of transforming the job market as an enabler for this. The other thing that came out very critically was policy, especially policy that addresses a different range of issues. And linked with that was the need to have the fact that there are very incredible policies that already exist as enablers for promoting digitalization, but the need to transform these policies into actions or implementing them so that they begin to actually take effect to promote this. And linked to that was the fact that that's a challenge. So having providing spaces for capacity building, especially for institutions such as governments, and I saw a lot of examples coming out from the speakers on how they already support different, especially developing countries, and even offering training to be able to move from policy on the paper, but as an implementation tool. Another critical thing that came out as a highlight was the fact that, especially when it comes to capacity building for policy, was the need to share and collaborate as institutions, because I think the notion that, Amman is an island and they can do things alone has long gone. There's need to collaborate for progress, and taking advantage of that opportunity will move us forward very quickly. Another thing that was very key was behavioral change, especially to promote digitalization. And one of the panelists said that, you can take the horse to the river, but you cannot force it to drink. And so in everything they do, they take the horses to the river, but they cannot force them to drink. So there is a need for us to push for behavioral change, especially when it comes to regulation, the policy, and the different investments that are made in terms of promoting digitalization for energy efficiency. I think I should also highlight the fact that energy efficiency in itself was identified as a challenge on its own that needs to be addressed on its own. So I think that was very interesting. And finally, as I close, some of with the kind of concluding remarks that came out was increasing end use and providing or ushering environments for adaptation of the different digital technologies that are being invented, but also enabling them to be used in the proper manner, and regulation supporting this as well. Finally, the issue of leapfrogging came up as well. And I don't want to repeat because Raymond said, put it very well, and it was the same perspective from our side. But I think in terms of energy, mobile payments, especially in developing countries, was something that was really highlighted and something that needs to be supported and key actions taken for that. So we see a lot of progression when it comes to the digital mobile platforms, but also bringing in the systemic thinking into these discussions that we're having, and having a multi-sectoral approach to these issues, because if you sideline them as individual things, then you leave out different aspects that can be brought up from different sectors. And finally, one of the actions that the panelists said that we should consider is thinking about the services, especially digital services, from a people's needs perspective. Because the moment you are able to identify what do the people need, immediately the opportunities for investment policy open themselves up. So perhaps we need to rethink and have a refocus on what do the people need in terms of innovation and digitalization, and how then do we provide the actions that need to be set in place to give to those needs and to address those needs. And finally, linking sustainability to the digital era. That is my last statement. And also just I had an incredible panel. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Because she's finaling, and so it's
Yeah.
One more thing.
Great.
But,
yeah.
No, I mean, thank you all so much. This is really great and very helpful to us in two ways, actually, for those of you that are joining us for the first time. So UNIDO will be developing a set of policy briefs that's coming out of the the virtual series of the Vienna Energy Forum that helps us in informing our work. But also we are the co-leads at the high-level dialogue on energy, on innovation, data, and technology. So all what you have said, especially on the issue of mobile payments and the fintech basically is an area where we expect we will have quite a lot of inputs. So I mean, I'm not going to try and attempt summarizing all what you guys have said. It's really great, but my main takeaway is there's a lot of progress already happening. We need to reap more of our collective thinking and partnership together to help scale up to achieve both the energy goals as well as the infrastructure and development goals. We need to actually think of the vulnerable groups and the divide, the digital divide that can be created, and to make sure that this is turned into an opportunity to create jobs also in developing countries. All that, of course, while really focusing on the policy angles, regulations, and all that. And on behavior change and how it impacts rural areas, I always remember very fondly visiting actually a village in India where really we were just going to see cook stoves that are being used in the village, and you'd be surprised that with the infrastructure that they had, which is very basic, there was quite a lot actually of use of mobiles and even digital cameras that they used. So actually digital technologies are very intuitive and attract quite a lot also people of different backgrounds. And so let's work collectively together on bringing those closer to the forefront and helping using them to accelerate the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. And now finally, thank you so much. And I would like to invite you all, because we still have actually a representative of a brilliant startup that won the Youth-Led Enterprise Award at the Clean Energy Ministerial meeting a year and a half ago or so in Canada. And they will be showcasing their product, which is supposed to help in improving energy access in Cambodia and a number of other countries. So if you're interested to learn from the expert and hear more about their technology, you just need to visit the expo thing on the left side of the screen, and you can then interact with our expert there. So thank you so much, and wishing you all a great day or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.